We talking rom-com, we talking action, we talking drama and movie classics. Whatever you want, yo, we have it. Cause we talking movies on the podcast. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. Hey honey, I just want to talk about the movie like casually. You don't have to bring up the cinematography. Honestly, let's just talk about like how the characters were fun. Married a film critic. So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host Julia.
And this is Barry the Film Critic. Hello everyone.
And we decided to review a movie that is not even out yet at the time of this recording. And it will be coming out March 18th, 2022. Deep Water by Adrian Lyne.
Yeah, this is a weird position to be in because I had the opportunity to review the film early and see the film early, which I'm really grateful for. But at this point in time, this is exactly a week before the film drops on Hulu, which is where most people, if not everyone, gets to see it. And I really like this movie. I have a feeling it's not going to go well. I have a really strong feeling that the critics are going to eviscerate it and that my review of it will seem really stupid and foolish because I'll be one of the few that really enjoyed this trashy movie. But it's funny because at this point, there's no reviews of this movie anywhere. There's very little information about it that's online. I feel like the guy who got to see Speed 2 early was like, oh man, Speed 2 is really good. I feel like I'm going to be eating those words, very, very soon.
I mean, you did say that about Speed 2.
I still like Speed 2.
And you still say that.
And it's junk, but I enjoy it. Not every, sometimes movies are, the food analogy. Sometimes it's a 4-course rich meal, and sometimes it's, a Hostess cupcake. Mm-hmm. I like Hostess cupcakes. This movie is a Hostess cupcake.
Would
just
you
to get
call
to
it a guilty pleasure?
I think it's somewhere between good crap and a guilty pleasure. It's like that song you're embarrassed to listen to on the radio, but you know all the lyrics to, and you make sure the windows are all rolled up and no one can hear you singing along with it.
Oh, that's my life every day.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so you understand. Yeah. So anyway, listeners, like this, on the one hand, this is neither here nor there. You're going to be listening to this a year from now going like, oh God, he's the guy who liked Deep Water. Well, yeah, I did. But it's funny that we're talking about it now because right now we're speaking about this movie in a total vacuum of like, well, I wonder what anybody else is going to think about it. I really think it's going to... I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for this movie to be like Bird Box and people obsess about it. It becomes like one of those streaming hit movies. I have a hunch that this is going to be considered a really terrible film by most people.
So when it comes out, it's coming out on Hulu only.
Only on Hulu, yes. Not okay. It was a theatrical release until the pandemic. But as I said to you, it's Adrian Lyne's first movie in 20 years. It's Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. There's so much, to use the pun, but really, there was a lot of heat around this movie. The fact that it's been pushed back so many times for so many years, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, not
because even they've been saying, oh, it's the pandemic, we can't release it. No. You guys have a Ben Affleck thriller here, and this thing has been shelved for such a long time. Clearly, I think even the studio's like, yeah, March. We'll put this out in March when no one is looking. Yeah,
kind of not good timing for a movie. I mean, January's the worst, right?
Yeah, I mean, if for Pete's sake, like, there's that. There's that Jared Leto Morbius movie coming out in a couple weeks. I mean, even that has had, the early word on it is not great, but that's getting a big release. The fact that this film, which wasn't even it was a $48 million movie, which really isn't much. But the fact that, even the studio's like, let's put it on Hulu and see what happens.
Man, I feel like most of the budget went to the snail farm, but we'll get there. All right. So let's start.
But this was fun because you and I had not seen this. No. I had not even seen the trailer. I was so excited about this when I heard that Adrian Lyne is making a movie after 20 years. I like Adrian Lyne's movies, not all of them, but Fatal Attraction, especially Jacob's Ladder. I love those films so much. I was looking forward to this, and Ben Affleck doing a thriller reminiscent of Gone Girl, and I like Ana de Armas. Based on a Patricia Highsmith story. I went in with big expectations.
High hopes, and I stayed up extra late to watch this, and I regretted this decision.
But gotta say, you stuck it out, and I don't think you could have gone to bed without knowing what happened.
That's
so
true.
I guess the movie it had its hooks in you.
Well, only because I needed to know who the killer was, and you can't not know. But that doesn't make it a good movie.
And to be clear, listeners, of course, spoiler city here. So if you want to see the film fresh, please hit stop and come back, and we'll have that conversation with you.
Oh
but
my gosh.
yeah,
All right. So the opening scene is Ben Affleck
as Vic Van Allen.
Vic Van Allen. He's a big hoity-toity to-do person.
I think it's inevitable that if Van or Von is your middle name, you're going to be accused of being. And I have friends with Von and Van as their middle names, and I've asked them, like, can I just call you Bob without the Von or Van? And they've said, no, it's such and such Van. You know, so yeah, obviously I'm trying not to say the name because I don't want them to get angry at me. But yeah, everyone I know who has,
You know who you are.
yeah,
No.
everyone I know who has a Von or Van, it's like they're very precious about it, which is interesting because even I'm like, my name is Barry. It's not Barry Gene Wirtz II. No, it's Barry.
Barry Von Worst.
Barry Von Wirtz IV, Esquire.
Okay, so Vic is coming home from a bike ride, and he puts his bike up on the porch. He's getting kind of taking off his bike clothes, and then we see his wife, Melinda, sitting on the stairs just staring at him. You're not really sure what's going on in her mind at this point. But she kind of gets up and walks away, and he just kind of just exhaustedly looks at her and keeps going with what he's doing. And that's the opening scene. So we don't know anything at this point.
We're not aware that this scene is taken out of context.
Exactly. And the movie doesn't tell us that. So now we're establishing who are Vic and Melinda Van Allen.
Played by Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. And let me throw this out for you listeners. So you're a casting agent and you're casting the new thriller by Adrian Lyne. And you have a character who is an inventor who helped improve drone technology. You have a snail farm. You are a repressed nerd. And you have a wife who has cuckolded you. Who do you cast? Who's the last person in the world you would ever cast in this role? And I got to say, like, I love that Ben Affleck is playing this role because I like him playing characters who are basically trying to get ahead of a situation that is constantly outnumbering them. I loved him in Gone Girl. I loved him in Changing Lanes. And I love him in this. But, I mean, it's great because this is not a tailor fit for him at all. He's not miscast. I think he rises to the occasion. But this role was written for no one remotely like him. This was written for someone who is quirky, who is kind of weird. They're constantly talking about what a weirdo this character is. And he is. And I think Affleck does the right thing by the role. But at the same time, like, to think, I mean...
He's too cool to be this weird, though.
Because, honestly, like, ideally, and I know, like, he's probably too old to play it at this point, but Christopher Walken would have crushed this role, okay?
Oh, my God.
I just sit outside and I watch my snails, you know? I have a snail farm. They're very slow. Because the snails...
No, I think they needed someone like Ryan Gosling or something.
Oh, too cute, too sexy. I want weird because it's almost
Jake Gyllenhaal.
better. Jason Schwartzman, weirder.
Oh,
Yeah. You need someone who, because it is kind of the comical thing. It's like these two people are so sexy. It is kind of ridiculous that you know they're so in some ways they're obsessed with each other, but they're also so hot and cold with each other. I mean, I think, you know...
Yeah, see, the problem is...
It's movie star casting.
Yeah. I think this movie would have worked better if it wasn't someone, like, so attractive and, like, so cool, and that you're...
And to be clear, Christopher Walken is very handsome.
Stop. So, because you wonder, like, as you're watching this couple, like, what is wrong with them? Like, why don't they have it together? Like, why is she not into him? Why is he so off-putting with her? Like, why does she have her own room? Like, what's going on?
You know, it makes me think like, ooh, Christopher Walken and like Emily Mortimer.
Oh my gosh.
How cool would that have been?
More interesting movie, I think.
And I like Affleck and de Armas, but those are better actors. They're fantastic actors. And I think that's the core of what these characters are supposed to be. Because obviously she's lovely and attractive, but there's a sense of danger and unpredictability to Melinda. Whereas he is, I mean, he's a walking question mark. But he's so strange and unsettling. But he's only that way with her. They have this lovely daughter that he has this really beautiful relationship with. It's really engaging. The young girl is a bit of a prodigy. She's so intelligent. She's wise beyond her years. And I think these scenes are really well acted. I think the child is well cast. And yeah, it's a nice contrast because you see the guy. It's like he has this marriage that, to put it mildly, is troubled. But like, why is he sticking with it? Because he has this little girl he loves so much.
Yeah.
He clearly is trying to keep it together.
Trixie, the little girl, is a welcome, like, comedy, like, lighthearted character that's kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. So you're like, oh, okay, like, she's like singing in the backseat of the car going to school. She likes to have Alexa play annoying songs that her mom just is like, turn that off, you know. So she has interesting conversations with her dad. So I enjoyed those scenes.
And it's interesting that Trixie clearly is closer to the father. That she has.
Well, the mom is not even around enough. Yeah,
but she's, I think, on some level, unconscious or otherwise, she's aware that her mother is a problem
and bored with her life.
Yeah.
So Vic and Melinda are married, and I think most of the movie I'm like, why are they together? Like this, I think, is it just because of the daughter? I don't know. I think that's probably a huge part of it.
I think, well, not to get too far ahead of it, but I think it's established that they had a really great thing when they were young newlyweds, because they kind of go back to that at some point in the film. And the daughter arrives, and the mother does not want the domesticated role. She doesn't want to be shackled by domesticity. She doesn't want to be the housewife. She doesn't want to be stuck in the house. She doesn't want to do all that stuff. She wants to be wild. She wants to be free. She wants to be uninhibited. And I got to say, like, the movie... This is classic Adrian Lyne when it comes to his erotic thrillers. He is asking, I mean, he's a very mainstream provocateur, but he's a provocateur all the same. He's constantly nudging you going, what are you going to do? What would you do here? What do you think? It's the same thing he did with Fatal Attraction and Decent Proposal. I think he's constantly questioning us as to say, like, do you like these people? What do you think? Because the film is not really telling us how we're supposed to feel about them, which I really like. Because as you've indicated, you're right, the characters are unlikable. But it's also because we can't quite get a hold of them. We're catching them in this cyclical pattern.
Well, the thing the movie doesn't do, it doesn't establish any kind of history.
Yeah, there's no context for this stuff. We're just figuring it out.
So it's like, we're just like plopped into the middle of this relationship and we don't know anything, and it doesn't really ever give us any clues.
But it is established early on that Vic is insanely jealous of his wife, and she's ravishingly beautiful and very vibrant personality, and he's very quiet and withdrawn, so of course he feels that way, just to take that point of view. But he is stalking her, and he is aware of the male friends that she has and that she's probably sleeping with every one of them. So at some point, it's a ritual where he will find out who the potential threat to his marriage is, invite him over for dinner, and at some point pull him aside and find some way of threatening him. And one of the things that he likes to pull out is that he is aware that his wife's ex, one of his wife's exes rather, has vanished. And he loves to... It's one of these things where I guess he was a well-known guy. I think his name was Mike. No one knows quite what happened to him. So Vic loves whoever the threat is. He loves to pull him aside and say, like, hey, I just,
I killed Mike.
I killed, Melinda's ex, Mike. I killed him.
Okay, but let's start with... Because we find this out at the first party.
Yeah.
One of many parties that just kind of blend together in our minds. So we meet... The first of Melinda's friends that we're introduced to is Joel. And he's this Brad Pitt wannabe. And
I love that so much. And let me say really quickly why. I'm not going to comment on the fact that we all know that Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas had a relationship during the making of this movie. It's neither here nor there. It's none of my business. I think they work really well together. But that's neither here nor there. If the movie could exist just well with or without that knowledge. But it is fun to think that, Ben Affleck and Brad Pitt at one point were both engaged to Gwyneth Paltrow. So I do watch the scene between you, and I wonder, like, did something like this ever happen?
Oh my gosh, only you would like think about that. Okay. So she's flirty with him, and Vic is kind of just like stalking them around this party and just like watching them from afar, and they're dancing and laughing, and it's a little bit like, because we still don't know her deal. We're just like, okay, this is kind of weird. Then she's kissing him outside, and Vic is kind of looking down from a window, and it's just like, what's going on? Because they're at all these parties are with the same group of friends.
Yeah,
it's all the same people.
Same group of friends. Yeah, something that comes up early, and it's never really explored in full, and it probably should have, because there is subtext here, and perhaps it's maybe a problematic form of subtext. It's not a xenophobic movie, but it is, of course, it is lightly suggested that Vic does not know what to do with his European wife. I mean, Ana de Armas is, she's, in real life, she's Spanish and Cuban, but the idea is that she's not American, and that she has, a very, very foreign, if you will, a very different, for him, a very alien notion of what sex and sexuality is. And again, like I certainly have no problem with that. The movie does. And we're meant to have, the movie's, it's kind of playing with that's what is it? It's Vic's suspicion of her, Vic's feeling like World War II different, but at the same time he's trying to make it work, because this is somebody, who needs her freedom, needs her space, needs to feel empowered, needs to feel, sexually free and all those things. But at the same time, there's a difference between that and being self-destructive. And she is clearly exuding these things. But again, like, I feel like the movie wants to talk about the fact that he married someone who is so different from him. And, it's not just, I think it probably starts at a cultural level. Like, she had a very different upbringing and different, and I think it's come to this point where it's like he's married to someone from another planet. Mm-hmm. And I want to briefly say it's interesting that Affleck did a film for one of my favorite filmmaker called To the Wonder, which is also about an American, Oklahoma guy who marries Olga Koryolenko's character, a woman from a different country. And his struggle in that film to maintain a marriage because of their cultural differences, because of how different they are spiritually as well as intellectually and psychologically. I love that film. It's nothing like this film, but it's interesting that it's interesting that Affleck would do two of these sort of films.
That movie is better. Okay.
It is.
So Vic pulls Joel aside at one point, and Joel's just kind of like, yeah, it's awesome that you're like so cool with this. And Vic's just like, yeah, I'm different. He keeps saying that throughout the film, like, I'm not like other guys, basically. But then he says that he killed Mike, and he's like, yeah, you really shouldn't joke about that. He's like, well, I'm not joking. And he's like, well, I don't believe you. He's like, well, you don't have to. And so this rumor
spreads throughout the community.
Yeah, well, it spreads through their friend group, and then it just kind of like goes further. And
because Joel clearly doesn't just leave the house wetting himself, but he clearly tells everybody in this small town. Yeah, he tells
everybody. And Melinda is ticked, and she's just like, what are you doing? You need to apologize to Joel. And so he's like, fine, invite him over for dinner. So this is kind of what you were talking about, like one of the first of many dinners where some random guy that Melinda has, quote unquote befriended is invited over for dinner. And I found it funny because I think Vic finds out what they can't eat and then makes that for dinner. So he made lobster bisque, and Joel's like, oh, I'm really allergic to that. And he's like, oh, that's too bad. So he makes him a grilled cheese like he's a child.
How's the grilled cheese?
Actually, it's amazing.
Oh, good.
Can I have some? Right?
I don't like lobster bisque.
Oh my God.
Right?
This is amazing.
Melinda kind of has the palate of a 12-year-old. Our first date, I took her to the best restaurant in the city, and she ordered mac and cheese.
Yes. It's like he was ashamed to be with me.
No, I just realized you were ordering off the children's menu to save room for alcohol.
You see, Vic never drinks.
I try sometimes.
Sometimes I think he's not normal. Because normal people can let go.
Do you wish that I were normal, Melinda?
My God, all the time.
As if I were normal, I don't think Joel would be over here having dinner with us.
You don't have to be rude.
I'm not being rude. I made lobster bisque.
And in essence, yes, there's a great moment where he uses a malapropism, he uses the wrong word, and Vic just jumps all over him. I love the tension of this scene in particular, because it is funny, but it's also like the actors. I mean, Autumn de Armas is probably giving the most demonstrative performance, but everybody's kind of playing it very collectively, especially Affleck. There's a lot of drawl humor in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at one point, she's like, Vic, why don't you go put Trixie to bed? And make sure you read all the books. Like, don't skip pages. You know how you are. And it's just like, what? You want to have like alone time with this dude while your husband's upstairs with your daughter?
And it's agonizing because you know exactly what she's talking about. It's like, she might as well be like, so I want you to read all of the Frog and Toad books very, very slowly.
Yeah.
And when you're done, all of the Berenstain Bears books, every one, page by page. Because I'm going to be down here for a long, long time.
Yeah, like it's so strange.
It's awful, and you feel the agony that he's feeling, because like there's something so wrong about this.
Yeah.
He obviously doesn't trust her, and neither do we. And let me pause, not literally, but pause and ask you this, Jules. Do you think the movie's misogynist?
I don't know.
Because I suspect that's going to be something that gets thrown at this movie. But I mean, I think my way of defending that is I think they're both awful. I don't think it's like, well, the movie is just hateful towards her.
Oh, no, they're both terrible.
I think the fact that she's terrible is countered by how he's terrible in a completely different way.
Yeah. They're both awful.
I kind of, it's just one of these things like it has nothing to do with political correctness. I think just because her character, at times, not always, but at times her character is so loathsome, I suspect there are going to be people that are like, this film hates women. I don't think that's the case, but I think in many cases, we understand why he hates her until he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so imagine being married to somebody who just does whatever they want. They don't tell you where they're going. They're just sleeping with whoever, doing whatever in front of all your friends. That's embarrassing. And, you're just like this millionaire guy who gives her, whatever. She has her own account, and he's basically doing all the domestic stuff, taking care of the daughter because she's not around. She's out sometimes all night.
And he's really good at it too. And that probably, I mean, we even see like he's got a good rapport with the daughter. So, I mean, he's kind of in that sense, he's like a model father.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good dad, but
and she seems disconnected, if anything, just because her frustrations with him and maybe, a feeling of inadequacy with her little girl. You get the sense that she's...
I mean, I think because she's not doing really anything she should be doing. Now he's doing more than he probably would in a normal relationship. So it does make him look like, oh, he's like this super dad. But if she was pulling her weight in the relationship and not just off doing whatever...
But the fact that she, that he's killing it, I'm sure only aggravates her even more. It's like, well, he doesn't even see me as being what he wants me to be, so I'm just going to be who I want to be.
Yeah, but when there's like, your decisions don't just happen like independently of everything else. So there's a domino effect, right? So if she's doing whatever she wants, then I guess he could just like not take care of his daughter and not cook for her, not take her to school, not do all these things. But then who's taking care of the daughter? So the more absent she is, the more like present he probably feels like he has to be. And then it just becomes a pattern. So she's resentful of him, but he's just at this point, like doing what he needs to do to survive, and make sure this 6-year-old has some parental guidance and supervision, know. Otherwise she's with the babysitter all the time.
All the time, yeah.
So, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I despise both of these people, first of all.
And I honestly feel a sense of sympathy towards both of them because I see the human qualities there, and I think the performances are good enough that we see that too. I like characters that are flawed, frankly, and these are very flawed, in some cases awful people. But I don't see them as villains. And in the same way, you and I have talked about this many times, and I'm not going to derail this, but like Fatal Attraction, Alex, the character played by Glenn Close, I don't see her as a villain. I've told you that. I know she does terrible things. I know she kills. Well, I know she kidnaps the daughter and boils the rabbit. Spoiler: Fatal Attraction.
But like, she's not. But she's not a bad person, you guys.
I don't think she's a bad. No, he's terrible. He's terrible. He's like, okay, let's. Okay, I'm gonna put you in your corner here. Okay, our affair is over, so you go your way. I had my fun with you, and she's like, literally says, "I will not be ignored." It's like, yeah, heck yeah. Screw you.
Yeah, okay,
I will not go away.
So they're both awful. Same with this movie.
But I sympathize. I find sympathy towards her, and the more I look at that film, it's like Michael Douglas. Protagonist, yes. Good guy, no.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean.
But it's a similar kind of thing. This is a marriage that is. I mean, there's so many problems with it. As you've said, it's almost like, why are they still married?
Yeah,
I mean,
their marriage makes no sense.
If anything, they're wrestling for the upper hand.
I mean, I was even wondering at the beginning. I'm like, do they have an open marriage? Because I'm so confused. Like, that would have made sense at least in this world, but no, it's completely like, what's going on? Yeah. Nobody wants to be here. So what are we doing?
It's this idea of a marriage as a constant game of one-upmanship. An exhausting, where you can't even enjoy each other. You can't, there's no sense of camaraderie. It is just an ongoing, unceasing competition. Everything has a double meaning, so you're constantly nattering at each other. It's ugly. It is.
Yeah, it's really like, okay, well, this seems like not a very fun way to live your life, but all right. So eventually Joel moves away. I think he gets like a job offer. He's like traveling or something. So he leaves the picture.
Yeah, because it's the film. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe we can have some semblance of normalcy. But now we meet another character, some of the friend group. And they're...
Let me say really quickly, the two best friends, Vic's two best friends, Ben Affleck's two best friends, played by Dash Mihawk, who's a great character actor, been in everything from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang to The Thin Red Line, and Lil Rel Howery, who stole most of Get Out. I don't like these kinds of characters because they're just around for exposition. They're just around to be like, hey, man, how you doing, bro? But I got to say, like, they couldn't have cast it better because it's Dash and Little Rel. These guys are so engaged and so, how do they become friends? It's such a weird movie pairing to see these great character actors.
And most of the movie is them, like, sitting in lounge chairs at parties.
Yeah, getting drunk, smoking weed, and just like, hey, how you doing, Vic? Hey, great party, Vic. But you know what? It's like, okay, these are nothing characters, but very, very well cast.
Yeah, but interesting.
Yeah.
So we meet one of their friends, played by Tracy Letts.
The great Tracy Letts, yeah.
Is Lionel. And so the friends are kind of sitting around. He must be a new addition to the friend group because he doesn't know who Vic is.
He's new to town, and he's something of a fledgling writer, and he establishes immediately that he's there to,
He's like, I'm a screenplay writer.
But at the same time, I think it's pretty clear that he's like...
looking for a story.
And I think he probably has sense like, oh, I've heard about this guy. I'm going to go to his party, Vic.
Oh.
And he doesn't even know. I think there's a sense like it's almost kind of a put on, like, oh, you're the guy. Like, no, I'm sure he's like, well, this could be.
I mean, I think Vic is one of those people that it's not like he's Elon Musk, but I think in some circles he's a little bit well known with like tech people.
But I think there's a sense of infamy with him because of this rumor that he killed somebody. Forgive me, I'm not trying to be provocative here, but do you think this is what it's like when you go to a country club? Like, this is O.J. Simpson. Hey. Nice to meet you, Juice. Do you think maybe that's what it's like at this point?
No, because it's still just a rumor at this point about this Mike guy, right? And no, I think they know who he is because of the drone stuff. Because there's been like news reports like, oh, inventor Vic Van Allen and this chip. And
a little far-fetched, by the way, because I mean, does anybody know anything about the guy who created the Spectrum drive on the most recent drone? Does anybody know the inventors of these things?
I mean, I don't
It's
know.
a little far-fetched.
I don't know what world this is. I don't know what magazines he's been in. Like, we don't know, like, what...
You think this is like strictly the people who read Popular Mechanics?
Yeah, kind of, maybe. It could be. But
A little far-fetched.
I mean,
okay.
in the world of, like, social media and, like, people sharing things, like, we don't know.
And do any of these guys who do these things, do any of them look like Ben Affleck? And I say no, not a one. There's no way.
You're so judgmental.
But the guy who invented like like the chip on a drone looks like Batman.
Like,
no
Mr.
way.
Smarty Smart Pants can't be attractive?
No,
Come on.
absolutely not.
You're like, no, it's
No,
not
of
fair.
course.
You can't be smart and good looking and rich.
No, of course you can be both those things because life is unfair. But anyway.
Yeah. So he says, yeah. Oh, because he's like, what do you do? And Vic's like, well, I've like photography. I ride my bike. I take my daughter to school. He's like, oh, wow, you can afford to do all that? You know, like that makes money. And then it comes out, oh, okay, you're a millionaire. Okay. So then Lionel, you know, he says he's like looking for a new story. Okay, so just kind of establishing some of the characters.
And yeah, by the way, I love Tracy Letts. I do. He's a playwright. He's written a play I don't like, which I won't talk about, but he wrote Bug, which was made into a movie with Ashley Judd. I adore the movie. I adore it as a play. Great character actor. I think he stole most of Ford versus Ferrari. He's great, and he's great in this. It's not much of a role, but every time he's on screen, I'm like, oh man, like Affleck really has got someone to play off of.
Yeah, because this
so
guy,
good.
yeah, you can tell he's just
He has
like,
such contempt for
like
him.
eyeing him and like suspicious of him.
It's great. Yeah. Letts really leans into it. So I mean, he really is he is the antagonist in the film. If it's not Ana de Armas, it's Tracy Letts' character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we find out that Melinda has a new friend. And we find out because the bank calls Vic and says, hey, you know, we need to put some money in her account because she wrote a check for $3,000 and it's not going to go through. Oh, what's it for? Piano lessons. Oh, okay. So.
And oddly enough, that's not a euphemism. She's actually getting piano lessons from a
really expensive piano lessons.
A very handsome pianist.
Vic, I want to introduce you to my friend Charlie.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Charlie. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for giving my wife piano lessons.
Yeah, no, of course. And she's a real natural, so it's my pleasure. Have we met before?
I don't think so.
I think you both remember.
Oh.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, have a nice night, man. Nice to meet you.
So he calls all of these restaurants to find out who this dude is.
Yeah.
He's like, do you have any live music? Oh, what's his name? Oh, okay. So he finds the guy.
And it's New Orleans, so I mean, I'm sure he had to call 40 restaurants.
He must have called a lot of places.
It's not like where we live, or maybe someplace more rural. Like hello, Jack in the Box. You guys got a band playing in the lobby? No, I mean this is New Orleans. I'm sure there's bands at every restaurant.
But he found him. Okay, what else has this guy got going on? He doesn't have a job. He just has time. That's another thing. I think I was just like, is this what happens when you have too much money? You just get bored with everything because he doesn't he has his snails.
We'll
WTF.
get to the snails. We have not discussed those wonderful snails yet. We will get to that.
So strange.
All right.
So finds this guy, and his name is Charlie. And then, surprise, surprise, Charlie is invited to one of the parties. And this is at their friend's house, and it's a pool party, and everyone's having a good time. And Charlie plays the piano for them, and, you know, Melinda plays a little bit. And so everybody's swimming, and she's making out with him in the pool. And Vic is, of course, just stalking them again because he can't. I don't know. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, a lot of Affleck brooding here.
A lot of brooding, yeah. And then it starts to rain.
Yes.
And everyone goes inside except for Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's inside, and then all of a sudden, Melinda sees his dead body in the pool. And you're like, oh, man, I think Vic is up to some no good here.
There is some foreshadowing, of course. I don't even know if foreshadowing is the word, because the thing is, like, the movie sets up like something's going to happen because everyone's inside. Vic is in the pool along with Charlie. Excuse me. And Charlie's kind of doing his own thing. And then apparently some time has passed. Vic comes in looking exactly like a man who just murdered someone in a swimming pool. Like, so he's like so guilty looking. Like, hey guys, how's it going?
Well, you know what? He kind of hides in the pool in a place where no one can see him, and you see Lionel kind of like looking outside, seeing what's going on. And
I love it. Lionel is just like, I know this guy's gonna kill someone.
Yeah, like
any minute now, he's going to commit a homicide. I just know it.
Lionel's like, I'm gonna
This is a scoop.
Be a witness.
Yep.
So you don't see the murder right away, but you know, she screams. Everybody goes out there, gets him out of the pool.
There's an attempt to revive him, but because everyone's drunk, at one point they drop the body and the head hits the cement. Oh, it's great.
I was like, dude.
I love it. Like, this is, I've never been to a party where this happened, but I love that, like, it's there's nothing sexy or even like well choreographed about this. Like, this is exactly what it looks like when rich, clueless people try to revive a dead guy to a pool. They drop his head on the
drunk
concrete.
And high.
Oh, it's great.
So they call the cops, and the cops are like interrogating, not really interrogating. He's like, "What happened? Were you guys drinking? And were you smoking weed?" And the guy's like, "Yes, but I have
yes, officer.
I have a card, a medical card." He's like, "Whatever. I just want to know what happened." And then Melinda just like freaks out. She's like, "Vic did it. Vic killed him." And it's like, oh my gosh. So, but what was interesting, this is how I know. This is how you kind of know, like, Vic is calculating now, because he, when he comes in from the pool, he goes to get a cookie that was just baked on a cookie sheet, and he goes to pick up a cookie off a hot sheet and burns his finger. Okay,
just a whoopsie moment.
Yeah, like, oh, and they're like, "Hey, Vic, it's hot. Like, what are you doing?" And so the cops are talking to him, and he's like, "Well, you know, where were you?" And he's like, "Well, I went inside with everybody else. See, I burned my finger trying to get a cookie." And it's like, ooh, alibi establishment. Like, he's thinking this through.
And he probably, as can be expected, that Melinda would lose her mind. And, you know, it makes her look hysterical and, you know, in public. And it's been established.
Oh, yeah, and he's just like, oh, that's how she is.
As friends, although they seem somewhat loyal to Melinda, and she's lovely, why wouldn't they be loyal to Melinda? But clearly, they're talking about her behind her back. They're saying, you know, not mildly, but it's the sense of, like, we got your back, man. Like, we kind of feel bad for you. We don't like you being embarrassed by her.
They see her with a new guy, like, every month.
So all that to say, like, when she's pointing the finger at him, like, it is this great moment of, like, Vic is loving this, because the fact that she does this only makes him look more innocent, because look how hard she's trying to implicate him.
Unhinged she is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And unstable. And so, I don't know, this is probably a good time to talk about the snails, because we kind of see he's thinking about the murder. You know, we're seeing what happened in the pool. And then so then her friend Tony comes back. New friend. But an old lover. Old boyfriend.
Yeah, as she brazenly says in front of Vic, he was the first American she ever slept with.
Yeah. So he's back in town and reconnecting with her, and like, oh, you know, I'm doing low-income housing and doing all this stuff. And she's like, yeah, isn't it so great? Just like fawning over him. And so he's over for dinner, and Vic shows him the snails.
Yeah. And this is the first time where we have a window into this, because we see Affleck's character tending to snails. You're like, what's this about?
They're like crawling. Okay, it's disgusting. They're like crawling on his fingers, and like it's
like Willard with the rats. Yeah, like what is his thing with the snails? And you keep waiting for. And I certainly felt like, okay, like because at this point we're like, is he or isn't he? So we're saying, like, if he is the killer, is there like a snail venom, a snail serum that we're unaware of that this movie has made up or whatever? And
we don't know.
At
this point.
At this point we don't know. But yeah, so he gives Melinda's latest lover a tour of his snail city. He's got cartons and cartons of these snails.
And it's so weird because it must be in some kind of shed or garage, but it's all like cordoned off with like clear shower curtains.
It's like those mists, like when I go to the food, like in the produce section.
Yeah.
It's like that with like for snails.
For snails.
It's like a sauna for snails.
He has it like this whole setup, and it's so weird. And so they go back in,
and the snails are like, Vic, we love you, Vic. It is bizarre.
If
yeah,
snails could talk, that's probably what they'd say.
Absolutely.
So they go back inside, and she's making dinner.
Like, you're the only one that gets me, snails.
Okay, but
I move slowly and I don't say anything. We have so much in common.
But Tony, he's like, oh, we should have snails. Like, we should go out there.
It's like, how dare you?
Yeah, he's like, we could eat the snails. Like, we only need like 12 of them. He's got like, what, 200 out there?
Yeah,
and
he's on his way to do it. It's like, I'll get the snails, man. It's cool. Like, I'll get them. You got a baggie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Vic, I love this. He's like, fun fact, if you have to starve a snail, you have to empty their
for
stomach.
like 48 hours.
Otherwise, it's poisonous and can kill you. And I thought it was interesting that he knows that. And of course, you wonder, is this foreshadow of any kind? No.
No,
the snails are a total dead end.
Information
goes nowhere. Yeah, the snails go nowhere. I love it. They wind up being kind of, just art direction.
I know, and you know what? That is so frustrating.
And I want, I'm trying to think too. Like, this is again, like not to get too movie nerdy here, but this is Adrian Lyne. It's like this guy. I mean, he's famous for. I mean, his movies are visually beautiful. This movie is no exception. It's gorgeous to look at, and I wonder, like, is there something metaphorical with the snails? Is it this sense of, is there something scientifically and aesthetically so pleasing about them that Vic, like, why the snails? And the film just doesn't.
It doesn't tell us. Is it therapeutic for Vic? I mean, we don't really know.
And Affleck was in Geely. It's like, didn't you question this, Ben Affleck? Like, maybe the snails thing wasn't a good idea. Like, he's been in some miscalculated films. And I like this film, but the snails are, it's strange. It's really, really strange.
Made one connection with the snails, just one thing.
Yeah.
That made it kind of like, oh, okay, that if that's the character decision, fine.
Because not to get ahead of it, but like there are, as can be expected in a thriller, there are murders and things that happen, and I kept waiting, like, is it snail related?
Is it poison?
Is it rat lungworm disease?
Yeah, like rat lungworm. Anything?
Yeah, like anything. No, the snails are they're supporting characters.
Yeah,
all 200 of them. Yeah,
exactly. It's crazy. Okay, I'm sure some of our listeners are like, "What's rat lungworm?" Okay, if a snail eats the feces of a rat,
you sound like Vic,
and then gets on your produce, and then you eat unwashed whatever the snail was on, you can get rat lungworm disease and get very ill. So
that could have been cut dialogue from Deep Water right there.
I know. Yeah. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Wash your produce.
So here's one thing I wrote in my notes. I'm really excited to talk to you about. So there's a scene. Forgive me. I think I'm around that where we're talking about it chronologically. But there's a scene where Vic Affleck is back. He's driving, and he's remembering the night of the pool party, and we see a quick flash of him beating the crap out of the guy to death in the pool, and then a quick flash of her having sex with the guy. And on the one hand, I'm thinking, okay, this like an Eyes Wide Shut thing where he's just imagining it because one of those events, so if you can guess which one, he was not witness to. So is this a fantasy? Is this something that happened? Is this a flashback? The film does not tell us.
Dang it! Why do you do this every time? And now I'm questioning.
Well, I'm not even, like, again, I want to give Adrian Lyne all the credit in the world. He was 81 when he made this. God bless him. He's still making these kinky erotic thrillers.
Which, honestly,
let's do another nude scene, Ben.
It wasn't even that erotic or thrilling.
No, this movie needed more sex, more nudity, more violence. But anyway,
it didn't.
But I'll just say, like, the moment I'm talking about, I don't think it works, frankly, because it doesn't tell you if it's a flashback. It doesn't tell you if he's fantasizing. It's just kind of neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And they should have made that distinction. And instead, it feels like a quick little montage.
I thought it was just like showing what she was doing with him when, she was alone.
But again, he did not see her having sex with the guy. So the fact that he would have that indicates, I think, that it's some kind of angry fantasy on his part. Because he wasn't witness to that. Okay. I think it's like Dr. Bill and Eyes Wide Shut fantasizing about his wife played by Nicole Kidman. I think it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, okay, but in this movie, she is out all night sometimes. He sees her kissing other guys,
But at this point, you're not even sure if Vic is really the killer. Honest, I mean, I know the movie.
No, we know.
No, I think the movie is playing with it. I really do. I think there are other things. I think there are possible red herrings. I looked at other characters as possible red herrings. I did. I even thought about the daughter because I'm like, how crazy is this movie? Because this is a nutty film.
It's not Trixie. She's innocent.
And it winds up poor Trixie. But the film, it's strange that the plot for a movie that has so many weird little odds and ends, it is very straightforward. But I was really, at this point, I was running like, I bet Affleck isn't the killer because in the same way Gone Girl had me.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember, like, I know it's been a while since we've seen it, but the reveal when Affleck's character goes to the shed and finds out what's actually been going on, which I thought was such a shocking reveal. Even at the novel level, I was so horrified by that. So I thought like, oh, like this movie's just playing with this. It's going to be like Gene Triplehorn in Basic Instinct, for example. But no, not at all. Very straightforward.
Yeah. So, okay, at this point, Vic figures out that Lionel hired a detective, a private investigator, to follow him, and Melinda wired him half of the money. So he goes ape on Lionel. Like he goes over to their house.
It's a great scene.
It's a great scene.
I love this scene
because
so
he's
much.
having lunch with his wife and his daughter, and Vic is just like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And Lionel's just like, he's a killer.
I love it. He's foaming at the mouth, calls him an a-hole in front of his daughter. I think the scene is really funny and really effective. And again, it's because Letts is killing it here.
Oh, yeah, and
his character hates Vic so much, so almost irrationally. It's like you really don't know that he's a killer.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
But
know
it's
for
become
sure.
obviously like this obsession that he's helping the wife hire a detective. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and his wife is just like, Lionel, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh my gosh, Vic, I'm so sorry. So she's like on Vic's side and just appalled that her husband would do something like this.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And and honestly, villain or not, I'm rooting for Vic. I love Affleck here. Like, I'm totally rooting for this guy, even though he probably did these terrible things. It is one of these things. I mean, it happens all the time with these kinds of movies. I'm always rooting for the villain because it's like, oh, I want to see if he'll get away with it. I want to see how far he can go. I want to see if will he be able to find his version of happiness, or is he definitely going to be punished for his sins?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so.
It's the drive scene, right, where he takes.
Yeah, so Vic sees Tony in town.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, Tony, have you talked to Melinda? She wanted to show you this property, for your construction stuff." And he's like, "Oh, no, I haven't heard from her." He's like, "Oh, why don't you just get in and I'll take you over there." So he gets in the car and just starts driving really erratically, and he's like, yeah, it's just out here, and he takes him to this gulch area where they like to go as a family, I guess, picnicking, and there's a river and all this stuff.
It's a great place to commit murder.
Yeah.
Great, really nice.
And he's driving really fast, and you're worried. I was worried he was gonna like crash, but they have this little dog in the back seat.
The dog reaction shots in this movie are great. The dog is so good.
Well, you were like, I'm really worried about the dog in this movie because of Fatal Attraction.
Because I'm like, every time I watch Fatal Attraction, I'm like, oh, that poor rabbit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really afraid of
And this dog is like so cute and so small, but he's just in the back seat, like.
He's got really great worried reaction shots.
Yeah, like, hey, could you slow down a little bit? But he just sitting back there holding on.
I swear, there's some close-ups of this dog where the director's like, okay, you don't trust Ben Affleck in action. The dog nails it.
Okay, so they get to their location, and he's like, I'm just gonna Tony, he's like, I'm just gonna call Melinda. He's like, yeah, go ahead. And he's like, oh, I don't have any signal. He's like, oh man, I forgot about that. Yeah, right, Vic.
Oh, it's great.
And he's like, yeah, it's just right down here. Vic picks up a rock and just like
nails him,
lobs it in this guy's head from pretty far away.
Oh man, you're like, was he a minor league baseball player
exactly.
at one point? Yeah, it's. I mean, wow. I mean,
yeah.
I would be like, oh, sorry, it was an accident. Sorry, you had a mosquito. I would have to explain it and be like, hey, what's that over there? And I'd try again. It'd probably be like 4 or 5 times before I made
I need
contact.
like a pile of 10 rocks. Like, can you just stand still for a second? I gotta
No, over there. Look over there. Just doggone it.
Yeah, so he nails him on the first try.
Oh, it's great, yeah.
And then he ends up
And the actor's stunt double does this great tumble.
takes a huge one,
yeah.
knocks him out. He like rolls down this cliff and knocks his head into another rock. I mean, he's a goner.
It's a spectacular death, and for a second you wonder, like, could he explain this? And of course you can't. But
No.
you do have this moment of like, maybe.
For a second I was like, ooh, he could say it was an accident.
Yeah, he just fell to his death and like really hit the hit the rock even harder than necessary. Yeah.
So he takes the body down to the river and takes it pretty far and like very intricately like ties all these big rocks to him, takes his belt, and at this point
You wonder, like, is this the first time he's done this?
Well, but
he's really good at this.
At this point, he's in less than 3 feet of water, and I'm like, is the title of this movie ironic? Because nowhere in this movie is there deep water ever.
Is it an expression?
Like you're in deep.
You're deep water now, man.
I don't know, because he's trying to sink this body, and I'm like, well, we know that from other movies that once the bodies are in the water, they're gonna get full of water and just float.
And as my very astute and highly intelligent brother would note, the film loses points by not having a character say the title.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody says the title of this
Vic,
movie.
you're in such deep water, man.
Yeah, nobody says that.
Yeah.
That's a missed opportunity. Okay, but again, ironic title because
even if they're lazy, it's like, Vic,
well,
Vic, I'm swimming in the deep end of the pool. Some deep water over here.
Yeah.
Nothing. No.
Nothing.
No.
So the next day,
The daughter's like, I want to go to the Gulf. Yeah. It's like, oh no.
Exactly.
Like, really? Like, this is like a really...
No, Melinda's like, yeah, Trixie and I are going to go.
He gets so excited about this. Like, really? You two? You want to go to the Gulch? Like, these are like rich...
I know.
Rich, sophisticated. I mean, don't you want to,
Go to the spa?
go to Sharper Image and then get your nails done?
Get a pedicure?
Yeah, like, want to go to the Gulch, whatever screenwriter. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could see Vic is just like, yeah, sure, let's do that.
This is a very opportune time to ask me about that.
Sounds like a great day.
Yeah. And it is pretty amusing because they get there and Vic is just like, his daughter wants to go down to where the murder happened. He's like, no, up this way, sweetie.
He's like, yeah, don't get too close to the edge. It's deep water. No, he doesn't say that.
No, he doesn't.
He should have said
golden
that.
opportunity missed.
Yeah. But the Vic and
Meanwhile, the dog is just shaking his head. It's great.
I know what you did. So Vic and Melinda are like laying on this blanket and he's like, I made you something. And he pulls out this photo book.
Great scene because it's so different from the rest of the movie.
It's like the one time you're like, oh, they actually kind of care about
and
each
you
other.
get it. It's like, I mean, for me, this explains the relationship. Yeah. There used to really be something there. The daughter's arrival was not unwanted. It changed the dynamic of the relationship. The only way she feels alive is to be reckless. And the only way he can feel like he can be a part of her life is to want to control her, which is obviously awful. So both the way they're pulling and pushing in this marriage is awful because they used to be a couple. They used to be together. They used to be a union, and and they're looking at what is lost. And you kind of briefly see like this used to be really good. And it's funny because like you think, oh man, like this is where the chemistry is. And it's funny because I think these two actors have great chemistry. But of course, you would never assume that in a movie like this where they're just kind of yelling at each other for 2 hours.
Yeah. I know. And she's always like, why do you stay with me? I think Vic is the only person who's ever put up with her, like stuck it out with her. And so I don't know if she has this, like, I'm just going to do everything I can to push him away. Like, let's see how far I can go. Like, what will it take for him to leave kind of thing? Very unhealthy, toxic thing to try and do. But I don't know. It's strange. So, all right, they leave and they're in the car and then she's like, oh no, I forgot my scarf. And he's like, I'll get it for you tomorrow. And it's just like the next day He rides his bike out to the gulch.
And apparently, I mean, there's some distance. So yeah, this is
Quite the bike ride.
quite the bike ride.
And
yeah,
he
and
rides
he's not
his-
really dressed for it too.
I
Like,
mean, he rides his bike a lot, so I feel like
I mean, he's not dressed like, Kevin Bacon in Quicksilver. It's a very old reference. I mean, he's
Yeah, what?
He's dressed like, like he's gonna, be down in his basement with his snails all day. So it's funny that he's really not dressed for it, but whatever. He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
Again, make more sense if Christopher Walken was playing the character.
oh well.
I'm gonna go
But
for a bike
Christopher
ride.
Walken wouldn't be able to bike that far. I mean, we're talking he could have gone like 20 miles.
I think Christopher Walken could bike that distance.
Wow.
He's a tap dancer. The dude has moves.
Okay. So Vic gets there and he goes down and he's like trying to like take a stick
He's
and
jabbing
like,
it with a stick.
push
It's
this
weird because
body.
he was so like, I mean, he was like the MacGyver of murder a couple days ago, and now he's like
Now he doesn't-
jab with the stick.
Now he doesn't know what to do. And then who shows up? Lionel?
Yeah.
Like, what does Melinda call him?
I think that's what's implied.
I mean, I don't
think so
because he
the
has
movie's
this-
cutting back and forth to Vic stab with a stick, and then meanwhile she goes into his snail room. I
Oh
guess,
yeah, and
looking for something. And
well, I don't know why she's in there, but she must just be
something's up because
curious.
she hasn't heard from
Tony.
Yeah,
she hasn't heard from Tony, and she goes in there and starts looking through all the snails and finds Tony's wallet, and it's like all this snail goo all over it. Like, what are they? I don't know what he's doing.
It's so funny that this is where the evidence is, and this is where they thought to put this scene in the movie. It's like, look, screenwriter, just interior bedroom. She's looking through his sock drawer, and there's the wallet. Instead, it's like you're gonna go into the snail den.
Yeah, like no woman would be like, I wonder what's going on with these snails. Let's start taking off tops and like looking through them. Like, no, nobody's doing
It's
that.
crazy. And the snail's like, don't look under there. And of course, she pulls out the drawer like, hey, that's my lover's wallet. It's very odd because
so
we've
what?
seen this kind of scene before, but like in the context of where it is, it's kind of bananas.
And so what? She finds the wallet and
Covered in slime.
calls Lionel.
I think that's what happens. Like,
And then Lionel goes out there and he's holding the scarf.
has he been gone for so long?
Well, I'm telling
Maybe
you,
that's what it is.
I think it's a long bike ride.
But I'm thinking, like, has Vic been out there so long that it was enough time for him to go, like, so, yeah, can you go and check? Because he was supposed to get my scarf, but he's been gone for, like, 7 hours, and the snails are hungry. No one's fed the snails.
I don't know that this part. There's no. It's very.
I agree with you. No,
strange.
I agree. I think there's either some stuff missing or the screenwriters are like, you know what, she's going to go in the snail room. That's going to explain everything. Okay.
Yeah,
It's going
it
to, don't worry, man.
Guess what? It explains nothing.
Nothing at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's down there and
Vic is down there. Yeah, he's
yeah,
stabbing
and
the body.
Lionel's like, "What are you?
Asking a lot of questions.
What are you
It's
doing
great.
down there?" And he's like, "Oh, Tracy. Melinda forgot her scarf." And
He's like, the scarf's right here.
he's
Is
like-
it right here in the room?
he's like, "So what are you doing down there?" And then like,
and Affleck's like, nothing. Stab.
and then Tony's hand like floats up to the top, and
And Lionel's like, oh no! It's so funny.
kind of like, "I've seen it. You're a murderer. I'm out of here." And so he runs to his car.
But it's great because on the one hand, he's asserting himself like, ah, I got you. But at the same time, he's so scared.
Yeah.
So he's going to the car, like he could barely, like his hands are
can't even
shaking.
be-
It's great. No, it like, I don't know. I think the reality of it is awesome because he's excited because it's like, I knew it. But
I
at the
was
same time, it's
right.
like, okay, Affleck is going to kill him now. And he knows
Right.
it. And he's fleeing for his life. So what resumes is a scene that would not be out of place in the first film we reviewed for this podcast, which is Rad.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a bike chase scene where a stunt double, not Ben Affleck, clearly a stunt double, is riding on his bike at what looks like 60 miles an hour chasing after Tracy Letts. And it's the funniest thing. I mean, if anything, and look, again, like, I like this movie a lot, but if anything makes this movie a camp classic, it's this scene because clearly Tracy Letts is about to, like, drive into a tree because he's texting and driving this.
he's trying to text his
and
wife.
he's trying to evade a killer who's chasing him on a bicycle.
Yeah, like I'm like, dude, put the phone down.
And they're going so fast too. So like the scene is meant to be like this tense action sequence, but I mean, it's so goofy.
Well, right. And then Vic is like takes a shortcut. So
And they got the occasional shot of like Affleck like pedaling really fast. Like it's like this is like the ending of E.T. This is so silly.
but like so yeah, because Lionel is like looking in the rearview mirror like, I lost you. Yeah, like you're gonna eat it basically. And then Vic kind of gets back to the main road and like falls down on purpose, like onto the road. And then Lionel,
And I thought like this is act of suicide. This is going to be a twist that Vic dies. No, like it's
Like-
basically like it's a stunt.
yeah, like Lionel sees him and swerves to miss him. And I mean, like any normal non-psycho person would do that, you know, like it's as a reflex, I think. And his car like goes off into the gulch and bye-bye Lionel.
It's so fantastic. One missed opportunity, the car does not explode.
That's true.
That's disappointing because like what kind of movie is this? Like no,
I know.
the car should go up in a blaze of glory, but no,
It doesn't.
But at the same time, like I love Tracy Letts' performance. I hate his character so much. It was so satisfying to see him eat it.
Yeah, it
It
was.
really was. I mean, I felt like yes, cool. Vic is gonna get away with it.
Yeah, it was a little bit because he's such an annoying character, but obviously, Vic is a serial killer.
Look, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Like it's a movie. I watch Silence of the Lambs. I'm rooting for Hannibal Lecter. I root for Darth Vader. I root for the bad guy. And I'm at this point, Vic is clearly the villain of one of them. So yeah, I'm very very happy.
But all right, the other thing that doesn't the loose
Make any
ends
sense?
for Lionel is that he has her scarf in his car.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. And Vic doesn't go to get it. He just rides home. And when he gets home, he puts his bike up onto the porch.
Wouldn't it be neither here nor there? It's like we found this fledgling. I mean, what's the obit gonna say? Fledgling writer found dead. Apparently, he went to get a friend's scarf. He took a wrong turn.
I don't know. Would they even know that it's hers if she doesn't claim it? Maybe the wife would wonder.
Is it neither? I don't know. I think you can talk your way out of that one.
Yeah.
More so than the body that's still unclaimed in the shallow water, not deep water.
Yeah, exactly. That's even more of a problem.
Yeah, that's a bigger. The movie does not address that. Now there's two corpses in this gulch.
Yeah, yeah. So Vic comes home, and now we see the first scene of the movie again.
Yeah. So we're going full circle, and
We've gone full circle.
and we get because we get
because Melinda burns Tony's.
That's the
wallet.
last image, right? Isn't that the last thing?
And therefore
The fade out scene, yeah.
becoming an accomplice to all of Vic's murders now.
Although, to your point of how ridiculous this movie is, and I kind of suspect that maybe even Adrian Lyne too is like, I might have gone too far this time. The movie doesn't end with the incriminating driver's license and wallet burning. No, it ends with an outtake of the little girl hamming it up in the back seat of the
my
car while the end
gosh.
credits are playing. Like, is this a De Palma movie?
Like the outtakes of her just singing this
Like
song.
bye bye tension, yeah. Like it's just like a wacky outtake, which I mean, I get it. Like DVDs aren't popular anymore, so like there's no deleted scenes or bloopers, you know. But yeah, what a way to really kind of take the air out of the tires, so to speak. Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, we were watching a movie and it's super silly.
Yeah. So it's based on a story by Patricia Highsmith. And I mean, one of the great contributors to thriller fiction of the 20th century. She wrote, of course, Strangers on a Train, which is one of the great Hitchcock films. She also, of course, wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley, starring Ben Affleck's good friend Matt Damon. And this story, it's also called Deepwater. It came out in 1957. And to read the description of it, I haven't actually read the book, but I was reading a detailed description of it not long ago, and it's almost the exact same story, almost the exact same names, same beats. It's very similar to the movie we saw, except for the ending. In the original novel, what happens is after Vic is caught trying to dispose of the body and the writer runs off, the writer actually successfully evades the scene. Vic goes home, sees his wife, in a moment of rage, murders her, strangles her, I believe strangles her to death, and then the writer and a cop show up, and Vic is arrested, and that's how the story ended. And, you know, I don't know too much about the making of this film. I don't know if they shot it and then reshot it. I don't know if you know, if that ending went out the window, you know, prior to shooting. I don't know. But that's the original ending. Do you like that?
I don't know.
I gotta say, I am kind of surprised that Ana de Armas is alive at the end of the film.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there's
Just because of, I mean, the murders that are escalating, his rage is
know.
escalating. He's becoming, you know, not strong as a person, but certainly more assertive and confident as a killer.
Yes.
So I'm kind of surprised that she makes it to the end of the film.
So there's a line where, and I think this is before we know he's, maybe we don't, I don't know, maybe we've seen him murder the guy in the pool. I'm not sure. But he says, you know, she's like, yeah, I know that you're a killer, basically. And he's like, does that scare you? And she says, no, because I'm the one you're killing for. And I was like, oh, interesting. You know, I don't know if she like weirdly, like, sorry to be crude, but like gets off on this knowledge of like, oh, what I'm doing is putting you into such a rage that you're willing to like kill for me.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the film is kind of taking, instead of him directing his anger at her, he's taking it out on all these lovers who clearly, I mean, it's like, I don't know what kind of guy like goes over to like a couple's house and just is like willing to flirt and make out, possibly have sex with this guy's wife when he's there.
Yeah.
You know? So none of these people have any kind of moral compass, as you like to say.
The one character who is very likable, and I suspected that she would become a greater part of the plot, and forgive me, I don't have the actress's
Lionel's
names.
wife?
Yes.
Yes.
Not only
Ooh.
that, I'll tell you this. For a while, I thought she's the killer. Because...
wow.
Well, think about that. Because she clearly has a crush on Vic. And she is aware, as everyone in this town is, that Vic's wife is sleeping with half the population. So I thought maybe she's the one killing all the dudes, making all the dudes disappear. And she's finally going to say, like, Vic, it's just you and I now.
Oh, weird. No, I never thought that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he would start having an affair with her as a way to get back.
Yeah, or something. It seemed like, I mean, not only, forgive me, I don't have the actress's name in front of me. She's great, and I really thought the character would jump out more and become more part of the film. And unfortunately, she's as much a part of the film as Dash Mihawk and Little Rel are. They're there to give exposition, really, but they're not.
Maggie Rachel Blanche?
Rachel Blanche? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, Rachel Blanchard?
I don't know. Yes, Rachel Blanchard.
Rachel Blanchard, yeah. Excellent.
Sorry.
Excellent performance. Like most of the actors in supporting roles, excellent performance in kind of a very skimpy role. But yeah, she's great. And I kind of wanted more from the character because the character really stands out. These characters are all studies and contrasts. So, and that's one of the reasons I love the Tracy Letts character, because even though he's irritating, he's the only one who gets it. Like Ben Affleck's character is scum. Mm-hmm. And he really calls it really early on, and I love that he's the one character who's standing above this as an outsider, going like, oh, this guy's clearly a murderer. I just need to be in the right place at the right time, and I will literally catch him. That's exactly what ends up happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess
then he eats it because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I gotta say, the ending of this film, interestingly, very similar to the ending of Adrian Lyne's prior film, Unfaithful. The idea of the family that slays together stays together. Mm. The idea of like, well, I love you, even though you are a murderer and you murdered for me, but in a sense, you have proven yourself to me in some sick, twisted way. Very similar to the ending of that film. Extremely similar.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because it does not end.
That movie is surprisingly stupider.
I think it doesn't, no disrespect to Olivier Martinez. He was doing what he can, but it was a love triangle where the third part of the triangle was played by an actor who's playing a fantasy. He wasn't even playing a real role.
Yeah.
It's a stupid role. And I feel like that poor actor gets eaten alive in that movie because Richard Gere and especially Diane Lane are excellent in that film. that character becomes more of an idea than. I feel like that's one of the problems of that film is there's no tension with that love triangle, if you will. And in this movie, it's all tension.
Yeah. Well, there's so much tension between them that I don't know. They weren't even really fun to watch most of the time.
Yeah, no, the actors are really going for it. And again, like I admire that they just go full all in on how ugly these characters are and how ugly they are to each other. And she doesn't, other than the scene where they look at the wedding album together, she doesn't really have any moments that really redeem her, so to speak, to the audience. He, on the other hand, has all these scenes with his little girl where it's like, man, this guy is an awesome, wonderful, transparent, and really active father. Everything else, awful.
Yeah, she has one scene with the daughter.
Yeah.
One scene.
Where the daughter's mocking her. And
No, like a sweet scene where he comes home and they're like laying on the couch together and they're like being silly and like laughing together.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, you finally realize you have a daughter in the house. Hello.
Well, and that's another thing. It's like the little girl visibly loves to torture Ana de Armas's character. I love it where she's, Alexa, play Old MacDonald. And she's just like, it's great because I don't know who I'm rooting for here, but I love that this little girl is constantly doing this to annoy her mother.
Yeah, exactly. It's so I don't know. Yeah, you clearly have an affinity for this filmmaker and this film, but
Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. You want to hear the ending I would have preferred?
Okay, yes.
I think I would have loved everything to make sense, and I think what would have happened was it's the ending exactly as it stands, except you have Vic go down into his basement and the tss of the water spurting, and he's in his snail world. And suddenly we're in Vic's perspective, and he's like, I did what you wanted me to do. And the snails all go, you're going to be here with us forever and ever and ever and ever.
Oh no, the snails.
The
talk
snails
to him?
told him, to kill
Oh,
him.
it's like telepathy. Like the snails are.
He's
telling
hearing
him.
this. Yeah, he is so deranged that the snails are telling him who to kill. That's why he has the snail. That's why he tends to them and cares to them because. Yeah.
Honestly, I would have preferred that because at least there would have been a reason for those stupid snails.
Right, because it's almost sensual the way he cares for these snails.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Speaking of sensual, this film isn't erotic enough.
No.
Which is a weird thing to say. I recognize that. It's strange coming out of my mouth, but no, this movie needed to be sexier, dirtier, more scandalous.
There's nothing. They don't even have a good scene together. These two.
There's some erotic, dirty stuff. I mean,
there's-
the movie earns its R rating. She's very naked. He's
Okay.
not naked enough.
Yeah,
It's
I
a very
understand.
American thing. Where,
Exactly, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying they don't.
Because he got really naked in Gone Girl. I was very impressed for Ben Affleck in every sense of the word. No, but honestly, I think there's enough here, but the movie is just above a Lifetime TV movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nowhere near as good as Gone Girl. It's better than a lot of the Lifetime TV movies we've seen. It's better than Unfaithful. It's way better than Adrian Lyne's Indecent Proposal. But I think Jacob's Ladder is at the top. And then in terms of his erotic thrillers, I think Fatal Attraction is still the masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the film. It's for me. It's goofy and ridiculous, and there's things about it that don't work. But I love the performances.
Okay, how many stars
3.
do you give?
I give 3. Yeah,
3 stars.
3 stars. You?
I think I'm gonna have to give it 1.5.
Oh man! But you know what? I think you're gonna be completely in line with every other film critic. I really think I'm gonna listen to this podcast in a couple months or whatever, or a year, and be like, oh, that's right. That's the time I stumped for Deepwater. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, because Deepwater, I don't know what this title means. It makes no sense.
Uh-huh.
Only shallow. It should have been called Shallow Water.
Which kind of sounds like an instant review, but anyway.
Yeah. The snails, neither here nor there. No idea what's going on. Ben Affleck is just brooding almost the entire time.
It's almost morose.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then Melinda, she's all right. I don't know. Her character is... I just have no respect for either of these people, like at all.
Yeah, they're awful.
I don't even have really any empathy for them or compassion. I don't know. I think it's hard to watch.
Think
Like,
about how hard it would be being married to this version of Ben Affleck.
well, okay, but what were they like when they first got married, though? You know, like what was the progression? Like, what were the choices that they each made that like got to this point?
I think when the daughter was born, I think.
Oh yeah, because he was like, we have a family, and she's like, that wasn't my choice. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, like you have this like beautiful human living in your house now, and you're telling me like you still think it would have been better to like have an abortion? Like, that's not cool.
But that's your perspective. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a woman who is suddenly feeling like a caged animal who has been
Here's the
free her
thing,
whole
though.
life.
Here's the thing. They have enough money and enough like wealth to make any choices that they want to make in this life, right? They could travel. They could take her to other countries. They could go on trips to like wherever they want to go. She could like do almost anything she wants to do, and yet she chooses to have this like dysfunctional, like weird sexcapades all the time.
She's trying to get his attention, though. You know, she's doing it to hurt him, but also to like make him notice, like, hey, I'm here.
Though there
This
was
is what
okay,
you can't get.
I would agree with you in the sense that at one point when she comes home after being gone all night, you know, she's like, "What are you gonna do? Are you gonna like throw me on the ground and like basically have sex with me right now?" And it's like, I think part of her was like, "Yeah, do it," you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like he has no self-control when it comes to these murders, but yet when it comes to like being passionate for her, I don't know what happened there. So I will give her that, but it's like, okay, could you try couples therapy then? Like, what's going on? You know.
Why have couples therapy when you know you've got a room full of snails that need loving, tending care, lots of slime, no salt, and you make sure that they are happy, and you know that kind of balances everything out.
You know, okay. Here's how.
Snail therapy.
No, here's how she could have gotten back at him.
Okay.
Okay, so she finds the wallets, right?
Okay.
And she's like, you know what? I don't need this guy in my life. He's a murderer. And I know I'm going to get all of his money when he's gone. So she goes into the kitchen and she gets her salt and she just like pours it all over the snail.
That'd be so mean. Oh, that's meaner than any of the murders in this movie.
She murders all the snails with the salt, and then when Vic comes home, he kills himself because he can't handle it.
Wow. So like she basically murders one snail for every boyfriend that he murders.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then because maybe they are like connected telepathically, so so then
So you think he's biking home? He's like, my snails. They're in trouble.
so then he just ends up throwing himself off the gulch because
Wow.
he's so
But
upset.
does the dog live to the end of the movie?
Yes.
Okay, I like this ending.
The dog lives.
Okay, well, then, yeah.
So really the biggest loser in this movie is Trixie, unfortunately, because her parents suck.
yeah.
But that would be my
But she's a prodigy.
that
She's
would
gonna
be
like
my alternative
she's
ending.
gonna join Mensa. She's gonna go to Harvard. She's gonna get out of that house at some point. You know,
Yeah.
she's not gonna grow up around those idiots.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I would end the movie.
Wow. It's vicious. Though I guess, like I said, the movie needed more violence, and that would be it.
Yeah. Snail violence.
Just like he walks in, it's like the sizzling sound.
yeah, it's just a big puddle of goo.
That's so disgusting. I've had escargot. Have you?
No.
I went to a French restaurant once, and it took me a good 30 minutes to put it to my mouth because, like, I know what this is. I know where this was earlier today. And finally, the sauce was so delicious that I ate it. And I actually had a few of them.
Do you also eat the shells?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the event, though, because I'm like, are they by themselves, or did I actually, like, I don't know. It's so gross. But yeah, this is a long time ago. I went to a fancy French restaurant. And it was one of the only things on the menu too. It's like, oh man, either I eat these things or nothing. So
Yeah. Okay, well, we want to hear if you think The Critic
Oh,
is
man.
completely wrong about
Again,
this film.
I feel so vulnerable right now because again, like, seriously, listeners, at this point in time, a week before this movie's out, there are literally no official or
but
even
that
unofficial
doesn't-
reviews
that
published.
doesn't change your opinion.
No, I'm steady Eddie. Like, I don't change my mind for anybody or nobody because I believe I'm right. I like the film. I'm just, the movie criticism, like, it's a part of, you're reporting what you see, you're reporting on the experience, and it's also, honestly, like, I enjoyed this movie. It's junk, but it's the kind of junk I enjoy.
I just
like
rolled my
thrillers.
eyes most of this
But
movie.
you watched it to the end when it was way past your bedtime.
That's true.
Because you would normally never stay up this late watching a movie called Deep Water, but here we were watching it together, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I think there is something intoxicating about it, and it has a lot to do with the filmmaker, too, who knows how to grab an audience. This is so much better than, is Demi Moore going to end up with her loser husband or run off with suave Robert Redford for $1 million?
Yeah.
It's better than that. But, not really a return to form. But again, I love that 81 years old, and he's still making these dirty old man movies.
Wow. All right. Well, I think that ends our discussion of the
I hope they put that on the
ironically
poster.
named Deep Water.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.